Hey guys, welcome to day 9 of Hot Topics and Cool Drinks. This series is created exclusively for adults 50 and over, especially for those of us who are corporate executives, past or present, entrepreneurs, educated, and family stewards. Part of households that have invested in private education, people who understand that values, not trends, are what guide families. Each evening, we gather here to center ourselves in clarity and conversation. Every night includes a featured book that aligns with purpose, legacy, and awareness, a wellness tip for women navigating menopause, and a discussion about parenting in today's digital world, where digital, online cruelty, misinformation, and influence culture challenge everything that we've built. And yes, every night begins and ends with poetry from my book, She Shines Anyway, because grounding ourselves in intention is how we stay present and powerful. So before I dig into tonight's poem, let me introduce my cool drink for the night. This is called Culture Pop Soda, okay? And this has, of course, carbonated filtered water, but it has organic juice blend from concentrates like orange, grape, chili powder, sea salt, beta carotene, and a live probiotic. So this is the cool drink that we're trying tonight. Let me have a sip of it. I haven't tasted it yet. It's good. I'm gonna give it I would say a 7. Yeah, I'll give it a 7. So this was called Culture Pop Soda. And it says fizzy and gutsy. I like that. Probiotic soda. Okay? And you know what probiotics are good for. We're not going to talk about that right now. So anyway, so let's go ahead and dive into tonight's poem that I have for you. Now, you know this poem is from my book, She Shines Anyway, 76 Poems for the Woman That Refuses to Dim Her Light. And you can find this book on Amazon.com, as well as my website, bewellnesscenter.shop. So this poem is called Smile. She's copying again. She watches you like a mirror. She's trying to master. Same tone, same style, suddenly same dreams faster. She doesn't compliment, she studies, takes notes in silence, tries to become what she could never embody. But don't be mad. It's the cost of authenticity. Real always attracts replicas, and your glow makes intimidation inevitable. So smile when she copies. You're the blueprint. She's just late to the vision. You guys like that? All right, so that's tonight's poem. And you know that I was able to edit that book in under an hour using AI tools, okay? And like I said, you can find it on Amazon.com and my website, bewellnesscenter.shop. So let's take a moment and let's go over our menopause minute, okay? Because I shared with you guys on day 1, menopause actually starts anywhere from 35 to 55, you know, and I'm just going to share this with you. I'm going through it, okay? I'm going through it. All right, so today's wellness tip for ladies that's experiencing menopause. Ladies, today's tip is about blood sugar stability. As estrogen levels shift during menopause, your body's insulin sensitivity can change, leading to spikes and crashes that affect mood, energy, and even sleep. Eating protein-rich snacks like almonds, pumpkin seeds, or Greek yogurt between meals can help keep your energy consistent and a sharp mind throughout the day. So that's the tip for the day, okay? So I'm gonna take a quick sip before moving on to our business corner. So this is the business corner tonight. How to read stocks, all right? So most of my corporate executives that follow me, you guys already know how to do this. This is more for folks that, you know, have recently retired, that have not yet dipped into the stock market yet, haven't started dabbling. I figured, you know what, something cool would be just to give a little bit of insight on how to start watching the stock market. So if you've ever opened a finance app and been greeted by a wall of numbers, you're not alone. Reading stocks is about translating those numbers into a quick story about a company's value, health, and direction. So let's break down the key terms so that they make sense. So one thing is the ticker symbol, and it's a unique shorthand for each publicly traded company. So for example, I'm going to write down a couple of things. So for example, you can look at Apple, for example, okay? And the ticker for Apple is AAPL. AAPL. Now, if you need to go and get a sheet of paper or your notebook, go ahead and do that, and I'll just wait for a second if you guys want to do that. While you're going to do that, I'm going to have a little sip of my pop. What is it? Culture Pop. Okay? My Culture Pop. Yes. Culture Pop. So AAPL is the ticker symbol for Apple, or TSLA for Tesla. Okay? Yes, that's my handwriting. All right. Anyway, so then you have the current price. That is the last price a share was traded for in the market. All right. So for example, if it says $215, that's what one share actually costs right now. So let's say if it was Apple, we're just saying hypothetically, $215, right, is what the current price is. All right. So then you have change, which would be money or percentage. All right. I know I have doctor's handwriting. Let's keep going. Anyway, so how much the stock has gone up or down compared to yesterday's closing prices, shown in dollars and as a percentage. And then you have if it's gone up, which is going to be in green. All right. Or, and I couldn't find a red marker, or if it's gone down. All right, which is going to be in red. So then you have volume. That's how many shares that have been traded today. All right. And then higher volume often means higher activity or interest. You have a 52-week low, high and low. All right. So I'm just going to, so you have a 52-week high and low. That's the highest and lowest prices that the stock has traded at over the past year. This tells you where today's prices sits in the bigger picture. Then you have your P/E ratio, which is your price to earnings. All right. That's a measure of how expensive a stock is compared to its profits. Okay. Now, a high PE might mean investors expect big growth. A low PE might mean that it is undervalued or it's struggling. Then you have the chart patterns. That's the visual history of the price movements over time. Then you have what's called a green candle, all right? And that's the price that's closed higher than it opened, okay? And then the red candle means that the price closed lower than it opened, all right? Now here's a little pro tip. Start with a watch list of 3 companies. So for example, you could do like Apple, Tesla, Microsoft, all right? And I think Microsoft is MSFT, all right? So you can start watching those, or 3 to 5. You know, you can add Meta in there. You could add, you know, your favorite clothing brand, all right? But you start watching 3 to 5 companies, and then you track them daily for a month without buying anything. You'll start to see patterns and understand what's normal and how the movement looks like before you risk 1 penny. All right. And then when you think about it, that kind of observation and discernment watching for patterns, knowing when to act and when to hold back, isn't just about money. It's the same skill that we talk about in my book. But hold on just a second. Let me get a little sip before I go a little bit deeper. Let me put these down and get a little sip. All right. And I said my book, but I meant my podcast, What We've Been Waiting For, Unedited. I don't know if you guys have subscribed to it, but if you remember, last year I did a segment called People Over Profits. Hold on just a moment. Called People Over Profits. Okay. And that's knowing the difference between movement that's meaningful and movement that's just noise. And that takes us straight to something that I want to revisit about that conversation that happened in late December, or I think it was November 2023. All right. It was a 6-part series called People Before Profits from my podcast, What We've Been Waiting For, Unedited. And that series was about exposing how certain government officials consistently put human lives beneath stock dividends, prioritizing corporate gains over public well-being. And as I shared last night, I believe that this mindset is directly connected to the reality that 2,300 children go missing every single hour. Like I said last night, while we sit here tonight, last night, and every night, okay, 2,300 children go missing every hour. Children we almost never hear about. And when that machinery of government and big business is designed to protect market stability over human safety, those missing children are treated as invisible as the public conversation. This is where I want to highlight an example from the business world. Okay, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Alex Karp. He's the CEO of Palantir Technologies. And Karp has made it clear that both in public and in his own feelings that he will walk away from contracts if they don't align with his company's mission, which is Palantir. Palantir refuses to sell its most advanced data tools to the U.S. adversaries, even if that means losing millions in potential revenue. And his reasoning is that some technology should only be used in the hands of those who will protect human lives, not exploit them. He even expands on his philosophy in his most recent book, Technologies of the Republic, where he discusses the intersection of technology, governance, and the moral obligations of innovators. Now, imagine that same mindset, protecting people first, was applied at a scale to the crisis of these missing children. The same powerful analytics used for counterterrorism and defense could track abducted or runaway children in real time, closing the gap between where the children goes missing and when they're found. But because those decisions were often filtered through, will it move the stock price? That urgency never reaches the top of the priority list. This is why that series, People Before Profits, is not just a nice phrase. It's a call to action. The market may measure dollars, but we measure legacies, okay? And that brings me, well, let me take a sip real quick. Let me take a quick sip of my drink. That brings me to the next segment, which is parenting in the digital age. Now, parents, the same way you wouldn't invest in a company without doing your research, you can't afford to let your children invest their time in online spaces without oversight. The influencers they follow are shaping their mindset as much as school, friends, and family, and in some cases, even more. In today's digital world, a child's social circle isn't just who they see in person, it's who they follow on social media platforms and even in private Discord servers or gaming chats. These digital role models can be positive, teaching skills, creativity, of resilience, or they can normalize harmful behaviors like bullying, risking challenges, distorted body images, body standards, or even extremist ideologies. The danger is that online influence often works quietly and consistently. Just as a company's stock price can shift based on a gradual trend, your child's self-esteem, values, and sense of belonging can shift over time because of repeated exposure to certain content. It's not about one bad video. It's about the slow accumulation of ideas, language, values that they see every single day. That's why your involvement is not negotiable. Know the patterns, know the platforms your child are on and how they work. Learn the slang and the trends that they're exposed to so you can spot red flags. Set boundaries, not just on screen time, but on the quality and type of content that they consume. Have ongoing conversations about why certain content is manipulative and misleading. Model critical thinking by asking questions about what they see online. Who made this? Why? What do they want you to feel or do? And just like monitoring a portfolio, you don't check in once and call it done. You track over time. You adjust when trends shift. You diversify their sources of information so no one single platform or influencer has too much sway over their thinking. And you remember, in both finance and parenting, your silence is permission. If you're not actively guiding the investment of their attention, someone else will. And that someone may not have their best interest at heart. Okay? So consider that. Think about that tonight. All right? And guys, I talk a lot about that in my book, Do Your Job, right? The Parents Manifesto to Protection, Privacy, and Power by Tawny Wolf, which you can in fact find on Amazon.com and also my website, bewellnesscenter.shop. So I discussed that in great detail. But let's talk about tonight's featured book, because that's not it. Let me get a sip first, okay? Let me get a sip of my drink. Let's talk about this book, Geronimo. Okay, this is the featured book of the night by Mike Leach and Buddy Levy. Okay, Geronimo. Leadership Strategies of an American Warrior. It's a deeply researched biography of one of America's most legendary Native leaders, an Apache warrior whose resistance, leadership, and strategic mind have inspired generations. Leach and Levy draw from historical records, eyewitness accounts, and Apache oral histories to paint a full picture of Geronimo, not just as a fighter, but as a man committed to protecting his people's land, culture, and dignity against overwhelming odds. What makes Geronimo relevant to us tonight? Leadership, adaptability, the ability to read the terrain, whether it's a battlefield in the 1800s or the stock market in 2025, and make calculated moves that protect what matters most. But this book also forces us to confront the complex truth about Geronimo's life. Born in what is now New Mexico in 1829, he was not originally a chief, but a skilled warrior and a spiritual figure among the Apache. His name, given by Mexican soldiers who feared him in battle, became synonymous with resistance. He fought against both Mexican and later U.S. forces, not simply for survival, but for his people. Leach and Levy do more than retell the battles. They capture the relentless displacement, broken treaties, and cultural defined Native life during that era. Through this lens, Geronimo becomes more than a warrior. He is a strategist, a diplomat, and in many ways, a reluctant symbol of a fight he never fully chose, but could not abandon. The book also examines how the U.S. military pursued him over decades, leading to his eventual surrender in 1886, a moment often simplified in history textbooks. The authors, they restore the nuance, showing the human cost of both sides, the political theater of the time, and the contradictions of a man who both resisted and adapted to survive within a system designed to erase him. For modern readers, Geronimo is a reminder that leadership often comes with impossible choices. He navigated shifting alliances, scarce resources, and an enemy that vastly greater numbers and weaponry, yet leveraged knowledge of the land, deep community bonds, and the psychological warfare to even the odds. It's also worth noting that Geronimo's story didn't end with his surrender. In his later years, he became a public figure, appearing at events like Theodore Roosevelt's inauguration parade and even dictating his autobiography. Some saw this as exploitation, others saw it as a man reclaiming his voice in a world determined to define him without his consent. Whether you read this book today, especially in the context of our conversations about ethics, business, and people before profits, Geronimo's life invites us to think about what it means to defend your values when the odds are stacked against you, and what it means to adapt without surrendering your core identity. That's why I chose Geronimo for tonight's feature. It's not just the history, it's a masterclass in courage, resilience, and the strategic thinking needed to survive in hostile environments, whether those are the battlefields or in boardrooms. Okay? So that's the book right here. And so before we close, you know, I always close this out with a poem from one of my books, right? She Shines Anyway, 76 Poems for the Woman That Refuses to Dim Her Light, that you can find on my website, bewellnesscenter.shop. And this one is called Dagger Dressed as Compliments. The color looks good on you. I could never wear something so bold. That's amazing. I mean, if I had that much time, careful. Not all praise is pure. Some compliments come wrapped in passive cuts. She doesn't mean to lift you. She means to slice you softly, to cloak her discomfort in socially acceptable shade. Don't flinch, just smile. Your light reveals her blade, and that's why it stings. Okay, did you like that? You know, I hope you guys do. And if you do, you know where to find it. bewellnesscenter.shop. All right. Let's see here. And so let's do a quick recap about what we talked about tonight. We did the menopause tip, right? Which is keeping the blood sugar stable to maintain energy and mood. We did the business corner, how to read stocks, and each term explained from ticker symbols to chart patterns. People before profits connection, the 2,300 missing children per hour, and Alex Karp's example of prioritizing human lives over market gains, as expanded on in his book, Technologies of the Republic, Parenting in the Digital Age. Why your involvement in your child's online world is as important as managing an investment portfolio. And tonight's featured book, Geronimo by Mike Leach and Buddy Levy, a study in resilience and leadership with deep historical and cultural context. So you guys, join me tomorrow, which is going to be day 10. Can you believe it's already day 10? Join me tomorrow, okay, for more hot topics and cool drinks. Let me finish this out. Until then, remember, the market, like life, is about long-term vision, not quick reactions. All right. So that's it. That's all I have for tonight. All right. I'll see you tomorrow. Mwah, mwah.